Hello everybody, this is me Amin
and this is Alex,
and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About. And in this episode, we're gonna talk about touch and go, touch and go, and the shit show that is touch and go, or what's going on with touch and go actually.
Yep.
So we're gonna talk about touch and go digital, which are two separate entities. We're gonna talk about the NFC touch and go card. We're gonna talk about touch and go e-wallet, touch and go and tolls, and finally multi-lane free flow, or now better known as multi-lane fast flow.
Yep.
So the thing is, today is Friday, 24th of March, and the past couple of weeks has been crazy for touch and go. In fact, it has been an issue for touch and go for months already. If we go all the way back to last year, and I think Alex will provide all the details of what's happened. But it's not getting better and better for touch and go, and it seems like things are getting out of control. It seems like everything is just disintegrating around touch and go, and they're losing control. Okay, why I wanted to talk about this topic today in this show is because I think in the news, not a lot of people have been covering it critically and asking the right questions. Then number two is, a lot of the comments are saying touch and go is terrible, it's a monopoly, it should be abolished, we should be done with touch and go and use other better systems. I want to talk about, is touch and go really bad as a system? Or is it because of other factors? And then we're going to talk about, multi-lane, fast flow. When are we going to get it? What's going on with it? And at the end of the day, maybe we put out an opinion to say, will touch and go survive this? Will they still be around, or are we going? And if they are not around, and if we are going to have an open system, what do we lose out? And what do we gain? Because there are some benefits to using a system like touch and go, which we will talk about later. Okay, to start the show, Alex, can you just give us a rundown of what's going on with touch and go from the start until what's happening now?
All right, I think this whole issue about touch and go, I think the whole thing became so heated. I think it started sometime last year when after I think we entered the endemic phase, people start traveling, borders reopen, and similar to passports, right? People found out that, their touch and go card has expired, because for those who don't know, the touch and go card has a lifespan of 10 years. And after that, I think people realized, my touch and go couldn't work anymore, I need to buy a new one. And so happened that touch and go also announced a new enhanced touch and go card with NFC function. Finally, there's a card which you can top up instantly from your phone with zero fees, so convenient. But the issue is that stocks are very, very limited
of this enhanced cards.
Yeah, so there's one issue. People have expired cards. They want to buy a new card, but they couldn't because it's so hard to get a card. So they're stuck what going to do now? I want to get a new card, I couldn't get. So I think that was the biggest problem. And the second problem is issue of refunds, because people who have money stuck in the old expired cards, right, it's so hard to get refunds. Like for me personally, right, I have a card that I want to transfer out. I send a request. So basically, there's an online form you can submit. I think the mistake can say that they'll respond to you within 14 days. You don't hear anything from them for 14 days.
Remind them again.
No, apply for a refund again. Yeah, so it happened to me. I submitted once, I couldn't get refund. Some people say that they can get refund within a week.
Okay.
But I need to send a second time, only then they refund back the money to me.
Within a week of the second.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so refunds not that great. I mean, it could be better. I mean, availability of cards shouldn't be issued in the first place. It's like, imagine a bank, right? So we can't issue ATM cards. What is that?
Yeah.
You must have cards available.
Yep.
Refunds should be done instantly because these people's money.
It's all digital anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start the story with touch and go. Back when it started, long time ago. I don't know what
20 over years.
Okay, I think it was like a novelty. It was a innovative technology where people can reload stuff into a card, and it's cashless and they can tap, and it was used for public transport. I think the intent of touch and go, or the promise of touch and go, goes along the lines of similar systems that you see around the world. So if you travel, you've seen technology like Oyster card in the UK, Octopus card in Hong Kong, you have the JR card in Japan, and there's another one I forgot.
Singapore EasyLink.
Singapore has EasyLink.
Yep.
So it's all
store value card.
Store value card. So it's cashless, right? And the idea was to move people into a cashless society, and it encompasses everything. Those who cannot bank, the unbanked, and those who have bank, everybody. So it's like the one card to be able to make cashless something of a reality for the whole society, no matter what level within the society you are. And to a certain degree, Touch 'n Go has been comfortable for the past 20 years because it's limited to parkings, to public transport, and tolls. Yes, that's it, right? And then when they started to move to even more complicated services like cashless, sorry, not cashless. What's it called? The digital payment and e-wallet and stuff like that. Things started to get really messy for them. The big trigger point was during like you mentioned, during the endemic phase. People realized that all their cards are expired and they have to transfer to this enhanced Touch 'n Go card. And I think it's all been, not to say coordinated, but Touch 'n Go realized that there was an issue, and that's why they released the enhanced card. But the problem is with the enhanced card is, why is it such a scarce commodity? And it seems like it's scarce for no reason, because we talked about it, right? You can get Touch 'n Go enhanced card special edition, no problems.
Yes.
And I think the media did ask this to Touch 'n Go, and they said what?
They say it's due to global chip shortage. They even mentioned that during the press release when he introduced the enhanced Touch 'n Go card. Said that it's going to be limited for now, but they're ramping up production because right now it's limited because of the chip shortage. That's what they said.
And this was last year, right? A few months ago, like 5-6 months ago, right? When Touch 'n Go launched the enhanced card. Until today, we don't see any improvements in terms of the availability. So what is going on actually? So after that, people are so frustrated. They cannot get their money. It's slow to get their money. They cannot get Touch 'n Go, the enhanced card. They cannot even get the standard card.
Yep.
But all these things are required for you to pay toll, for you to pay public transport, for you to pay for parking. Then what happened after that?
Then, of course, the Works Minister, I think sometime in February, they had a consultation with Touch 'n Go card, basically asking them, raising the issues like, what's going on all this. So they also, not Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Consumer Trade and Cost of Living. So they brought the issue with Touch 'n Go, and then they asked them to solve several issues. One of it, I think that the main reason why they had a meeting is because of the confusion of the Touch 'n Go Visa card. It's a whole different thing. So that one is very clear cut. That has been addressed. So basically, when you apply for the card, right, you'll be informed that this is not a Touch 'n Go card. But besides that, about the availability of cards, right, Touch 'n Go said that they will increase the production of the enhanced Touch 'n Go card by 30% to cope with demand.
Yes.
And also other things is that they are also being instructed to make refunds easier and also quicker. At the same time, also remind users before the card's expired, so that people know that the card's expired, they need to buy a new card. Don't wait until like you can't use the card, then start panicking.
Yep.
Because I think as we mentioned before, there's a couple of people who complain that if your card's expired, right, you still can reload the card.
Yes.
But I can't use it. So the money starts like, why you let me reload in the first place?
Yep.
Like before card expire, you should be reminded, similar to credit cards, right? They say, your card's going to expire in 2 months' time. Okay, please get a new one.
Yep.
Don't wait until last minute.
Yep. I don't even know how to break this down, right? So the big trigger point was when everybody's Touch 'n Go card expired and they wanted to get the enhanced card, and then they cannot get the enhanced card. Yep. At the same time, Touch 'n Go also they also introduced this new thing,
Pay Direct.
Pay Direct. And then for the toll system, what's it called again? The toll system, NFC, not NFC.
RFID.
RFID.
Yes.
That's also introduced by Touch 'n Go.
Yes.
And then is Touch 'n Go a monopoly? So Touch 'n Go has partnerships or relationships or investors with RHB Bank or something like that. CIMB Bank, right?
Yes.
They are introducing all these enhancements, but I don't know what they're trying to do. It's like they introduce all these new things that are really good and can open the system and can make the system like very useful for a lot of people. But they are also like sabotaging themselves.
Yes, it's like, for example, right, the reason why RFID was introduced is because the government wants to implement multi-lane free flow.
Yes, they wanted to actually stop toll booths.
Yes,
right?
No more physical cards, no more smart tag, so no more gantry, no more barriers, no more dedicated lanes. Just drive through, and then your money get deducted automatically.
Yes, and because Touch 'n Go was I don't want to say the word monopoly, but because Touch 'n Go is the system provider for people to pay tolls on the highway, right? Because you only use the Touch 'n Go card right now. You cannot even use cash, right?
Yep.
So they were tasked to develop the system, and they introduced the RFID system.
Yes.
And then they did testing for the RFID system, and that was like
Years
messed up as well. A lot of people had to back up. The location of the RFID toll booths were, I think, not strategic. It were haphazardly placed that it became dangerous for a lot of people. It was an issue. And then after that, if I'm not mistaken, Plus, right, came in and said, okay, you know what? We are also going to do a RFID system because this is going to benefit everybody. And then they did it. They introduced Plus RFID.
Yeah, which is an open payment system.
Which means what?
Which means that it's not tied to an e-wallet, so it's open. You can choose your payment method.
You can use credit card
or debit cards, so you can link it to your own preferred cards.
Yep.
Yeah, not just one.
Yeah, so it's more flexible that way.
Yes. So,
but then somebody put a stop to it, right?
Yeah. So after that, CIMB, which is who owns like 52% of Touch 'n Go, took legal action. Basically, they said that Plus is violating a joint venture agreement that was signed in 1998 about toll payment solution. So after that, eventually Plus decided not to continue.
Not to pursue, right?
And they agreed to adopt Touch 'n Go's RFID system.
Which brings Touch 'n Go back to the driving seat and back to the monopoly. And it also means that they can take their own time to deploy as many RFID booths as they want. Like, what is stopping them from deploying RFID booths on all of the highway toll booths in Malaysia?
You mean the number of the lanes?
Yes.
That's actually under the jurisdiction of the Malaysian Highway Authority. So they are the one who can decide how many booths are available.
But I don't see. Okay, so when we start asking all these questions, right, we get all the pointed fingers, right? So Touch 'n Go will say, okay, you need to talk to the Lembaga Lebuh-Raya. Lembaga Lebuh-Raya says, okay, you have to talk to Finance Minister. Finance Minister says, oh, you have to talk to JPJ, whatever. We'll get the runaround, right? But the thing is, when Touch 'n Go first started and they wanted to implement the NFC cards on all of the highway toll systems, there was no apprehension. They could deploy that.
Sorry, NFC card is different thing.
No, not NFC card. The Touch 'n Go card.
Yes.
They could deploy that to anybody. When Touch 'n Go first started, right? All highways could use Touch 'n Go, no issues. There was no like, oh, talk to this party, talk to this party, talk to this party. Now that when we want to introduce something, an enhancement of Touch 'n Go, which is, if you look at it in terms of implementation, it's the same method, right? So before it was cash. Then you move to cashless, which is Touch 'n Go. So to deploy that, you had to get everybody's agreement, and they made it happen. Now all of the highway systems in Malaysia use Touch 'n Go. All of the public transport systems in Malaysia use Touch 'n Go. Now, why is there a problem to move from Touch 'n Go to RFID?
Again, it's basically, I would say, overall mismanagement and also a lack of policy push. Because, okay, for example, the RFID, right, when it was announced, right, the Highway Authority also set a target to achieve multi-lane free flow by 2025. And RFID is supposed to be an enabler of that. So it was announced that they aim to reach 60% RFID adoption rate by the end of 2022. So when most highways implemented it, I think the last one, the major one, will be Plus Highway in 2022, last year. They were supposed to be keeping track, because obviously you can't just turn on RFID lanes so many in one go. You must do it progressively.
Why can't you just do a blanket change? Is there an issue?
It always be transition, or else number one is how many users are there using RFID? You can't just turn on like that. So this one must do progressively. So they start with one lane, and then there's supposed to be someone supposed to keep track. Okay, how many more people are switching over? Similar to cash, you don't kill cash immediately. It's done transition. Okay, we're going to have how many people use Touch 'n Go. So based on data, okay, Touch 'n Go usage has reached 100%. Means everyone has a Touch 'n Go card. Then they can confidently say, okay, let's kill off cash. So similar to RFID. So when RFID was first announced, right, there's hardly any tracking on updates on it. Like for example, how many people using RFID?
There was no reporting to say, okay, we've converted X number of Touch 'n Go users to RFID, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, and then there should be more push from all parties. Okay, you know what? Switch to RFID because, we're going to move towards MLFF.
Yeah.
But there's lacking a push. And also, after the end of last year, right, there's no update. So how many people are using RFID? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who switch to RFID, but what's the data? There's no clear stats from the highway authority.
Yes.
Because if it goes to reach MLFF by 2025, right, there should be a constant reminder, similar to like how 3G is being shut down. It's like, guys, we're going to shut down 3G in 2 years' time.
Yes.
Please switch to 4G devices. Then every quarter there's an update. Okay, we only have 1 million users left on 3G devices, and it's getting less and less, 200,000 units. Then after that, okay, we can kill off the 3G network. So it has to be done in transition. But we're not seeing that follow up by the authorities.
There's no sequencing.
Yes.
And so when we ask about the sequencing, right, who is supposed to be in control of the sequencing?
The regulator, which is the highway authority.
So if we ask Touch and Go and say, okay, we have to ask the highway authority. If you ask the highway authority, then they will say, oh, you have to ask the finance minister. I think you did an article where you said that, okay, three parties have to work together.
John, yep.
Yes. So why is that not? That has not started, right? They've only like, I think recently said that, okay, these parties are going to work together, and it was only after you wrote the article.
I think the trigger point recently, number one would be recently the Prime Minister had a open dialogue in KL Convention Centre. So one of the youth asked the Prime Minister, like, what's going on with Touch and Go? Are we going to dismantle the Touch and Go payment method anytime soon, because they're monopolizing toll highways and also public transport? Then Prime Minister said,
you see, Touch and Go has been in operations for more than 2 decades. There has not been convincing or development or progress in the system. And I think you are right. We will have to reconsider that.
Next day, our Transport Minister, Anthony Loke, he announced that, okay, he already instructed Prasarana, the operator of the trains, River KL buses and train, as well as KTM Berhad, to implement credit and debit card payments as soon as possible. So that is set in motion. So okay, finally, the government's really pushing this forward to ensure that Touch and Go is not the only payment method, and there will be more payment methods available for consumers.
Okay.
And the next day, Works Minister Azina Nantalingi, he also announced that by September, 5 highways will start accepting credit and debit card in addition to Touch and Go.
So now you see that, okay, these 3 ministries are working together. Apparently lah. So they're either working together or they're working in sequence lah. From your reporting of this, right? So what do you think will be the end outcome of opening this up and not making Touch and Go another monopoly?
Well, I think as long as consumers have choice, so Touch and Go is no longer a monopoly. They need the backups. They need to give consumers a strong reason why they need to keep their Touch and Go cards. But like we mentioned earlier, right? Around the world, a lot of utility, a lot of public transport, they still use the store value card because there's a benefit to that compared to credit and debit card. Let's be specific in terms of public transport. If you use Touch and Go card, you just tap the barrier, just opens instant straight away. If you're going to use your credit and debit card, there's going to be a couple seconds delay. It's still quick, but it's going to be a couple seconds delay.
There's a verification process required because the amount is not stored on your card. It's stored in the system, in the cloud.
When you tap on it, right? Let's say you use Visa. Yes, let's say you use Visa, right? So you need to connect the Visa. Visa you need to connect to your bank, see whether this card is still valid or not, whether there's any account balance, sufficient credit or not. Then you open. So that will have some slight delay. It's convenient. You don't need to carry extra card, but it's no way as quick as Touch and Go because it's store value card.
Yeah, I think it's good that you mentioned that because we talked about when we started the show, I wanted to talk about like, okay, here are the issues, but here are the other things that people don't talk about behind the issue. So a lot of the news reporting that we see has been saying that, okay, Touch and Go is a monopoly, and then after that it's just reporting on what is happening. So when the ministers are moving, they are saying that, okay, they're going to allow credit cards in public transportation and the toll system. And everybody's just reporting that as is. The problem is a lot of people don't look at what's the issue going to be. And we talked about like how stored value card has benefits, and it's still being used around the world. Even in major developed countries. The reason why all these developed countries are still using this system is because it makes cashless a commodity, and it makes it accessible to everybody. In fact, places like in Hong Kong, a lot of the merchants, the small shops and all that, they prefer for you to use either cash or the Oyster card. So if you're going to move to a cashless society, you talk about all the goreng pisang seller, the the losi fan seller, the yong tau fu seller, the air tebu seller. If you want to go cashless, because it's more convenient, it's faster, they can serve more people. They don't have to handle cash because it can be dangerous. They can lose it. It can get stolen. So it helps move the society along to become better. So I don't agree if the narrative says that, okay, we're gonna kill Touch 'n Go and break the monopoly, because it really stops a major part of the society to move into cashless, and then they have no other option than to move to credit card. And that is a major problem for me. If you move to credit card, you are now under the thumb or under the control of banks, which is even worse because you're handling interest rates and all those things.
I will argue that there's also one element of the cards that is accessible for the masses. There's prepaid cards, which I think is more accessible right now. Which you don't need to have any, you don't need to open a bank account. There's a lot of products that's offering prepaid cards these days.
Yes, yeah. I agree. And, prepaid cards want to tap into those who are unbanked, right?
Yes.
They don't want to put money in the bank, but they still need to go to cash. They still need to go cashless.
Yes.
But what I'm trying to say is, instead of having one system over the other, it's good to have an ecosystem where the people can choose. And I'm sure many would prefer to use Touch 'n Go.
Yeah, just to make it clear that Touch 'n Go is not going to get killed. It's still going to be maintained.
Yes.
It says that these will be added options, just to clarify. Because some people have the misconception that, government's going to shut down Touch 'n Go, you only can use credit debit cards. No, Touch 'n Go will still be here to stay, as clarified by Anthony Loke, saying that we're not killing Touch 'n Go, we're adding options.
Okay,
so those still exist.
My concern is this progress is, if untetted, will make it so that there will be a cost for the public to bear. If there is a transaction cost using credit card, right, there is a fee. Who's paying for that fee? The reason why public transportation use the stored value card, right, is because that is cheaper than credit card.
Yep.
And that makes public transportation cheaper. That makes public highways cheaper. If we are going to, and if people say, oh, I don't want Touch 'n Go because it's such a hassle and they're not going to move and they're not going to provide a hands card and whatever, it makes it difficult, right? And we're going to revert to the natural progression will be, okay, because credit card is so widely available, there's no stock issue, everybody has one. Those who are unbanked can get a prepaid one. It's done. It's going to be there. Then the stored value system is dying. There's going to be a built-in cost that we all have to pay to move to that.
Interesting that you mentioned about cost, because I think one of the major gripes of the public is that Touch 'n Go is known for charging all sorts of extra costs. That's a perception. Like for example,
reload fee and
reload fees at merchants. Like, why do you need to charge reload fee? Because normally other places you can reload for free. But even like in Malaysia, right, you go to Rapid KL stations, right, if you reload from the station, right, you have to pay the 50-cent surcharge.
Yep.
Whereas if you go to other Touch 'n Go machines, it's free. Why is it not universal? And back then there was also a huge complaint that if you use Touch 'n Go card, right, you're being penalized with a 10% surcharge. Like cashless, you need to pay 10%. But if you pay by ticket by cash, it's free. Like, what's the logic? And then to get a new card, you need 10 ringgit. 10 ringgit is not a deposit. It's a cost for the card.
It's the cost. Yeah, it's how much you pay for the card itself.
Yes, when it expires, right, if you need new,
You don't get it back.
You don't get it back. And you need a new card, you need to pay 10 ringgit.
Yep.
So that's one of the frustrations of people. Like, they think that Touch 'n Go has been charging people way too much.
Okay, I agree with that. And the thing is that those things all can be fixed. So when you talk about Touch 'n Go, right, and people talk about all these problems, right, the surcharge lah, the stock lah, the
refund process,
refund, expiry, whatever, the RFID lane I have to reverse and all that problem, right? All that is implementation problem. It's all technology problem. It's all a matter of, like, if we do it right, if we put more tools, if we put more thought into it, this wouldn't be an issue. If we can foresee that the Touch 'n Go cards are going to expire, let's make sure that we have enough stock. Now, all the questions that we've been asking, or all of the media people have been asking, went to the Touch 'n Go management, have been met with very basic answer. Oh, we don't have stock. Or
global supply issue,
or we're looking into it. Global supply issue. We're going to implement. You have all these obscure deadlines, right? We're going to have our MLFF by 2025, which is in the next 2 years. But in the last 2 years, no progress has been made. And for me, all this comes down not to the technology, not to the implementation, but to the execution. And the execution is all down to the people.
Yep.
It's the management of the company itself. And I think that's the problem.
Fully agree. So that's the reason why I think that's what the Prime Minister said, right? You know, they're given like 20 over years. There's lacking innovation space. They have all the time to fix this problem, but they do not evolve.
Yes, but the thing is, for the Prime Minister to say that, it implies that, okay, you either evolve or you die. And if you die, the alternative is credit card companies, which is and banks, which is worse.
Or prepaid providers, e-wallet.
Or e-wallet, which
Yes.
is, okay, let's not even start about how terrible Grab is. To the riders, right? They can control fees and rates willy-nilly because they are essentially a monopoly. They are, okay, it's not a monopoly in the traditional sense.
They're dominant.
But they are the strongest player, and nobody else can survive, right? We depend on them.
Yep.
It becomes so ubiquitous that it's no longer, okay, let's deliver stuff, let's grab.
But at the end of the day, it's still options, right? I mean, it's not.
Yes,
we're not dependent on one company, because the issue is that we're also dependent on one company for 20 years, touch and go. Whatever complaints, right? What choice you have? So that's why there's a problem of complacency. It's like,
Yes.
there's no need for me to evolve, because just wait lah. You know, no kite, just wait lah. Wait until got stock. You know, there's no urgency.
Okay,
from the end.
I agree with that. And if that was the intent of the government or the intent of the Prime Minister and the ministers that's already put all these things in action, it's not being communicated properly. It's not saying that, okay, we're putting pressure on Touch and Go, or we're talking to Touch and Go, or he can say that, okay, I've given this deadline to Touch and Go. If they cannot do it, then, you know, I'm going to change the management, I'm going to do something. It's to say that, okay, if Touch and Go doesn't, because the narrative I'm seeing now, and I don't know, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, or whether I'm seeing it in the wrong way. It's setting up a system where, okay, if they don't want to do it, we get somebody else to do it. And this somebody else, to me, is even more dangerous.
For me, it's not get someone else to do it. It's like, you're not going to do it properly, I'm going to invite someone else to come into the picture as well. So you guys have to compete. That's the way I see it. Because again, they're not getting rid of Touch and Go. They're adding more options. So like for example, private transport, right? We've seen it in London or New York, right? They added credit card terminals already. So you can use it on top of the Oyster card or the New York Metro card whatsoever. But as a consumer, store value card for me is always faster.
Yes.
I'll still use
Faster and cheaper.
Faster and cheaper, not too sure. But usually is the most important is faster, because I just tap, opens. Don't need to wait for credit card authentication. Because like for example, I think if you use KI Express, right, they do accept credit card. You can use Samsung Pay and all that. It takes time for the gantry to open.
Yep.
So as a consumer, as a daily commuter, I'll still use Touch and Go. If the product is good, I'll go for the whichever has the less problem. So for this instance, right, it's giving up more options. So let's say Touch and Go card no stock, no problem. I can use my credit card, debit card, prepaid card, whatsoever.
So it's a backup lah.
It's a backup, and it's also giving more options, and also more reason for Touch and Go to improve, because okay, now they need to compete with all these partners. So like for example, if you've got Samsung Pay or Apple Pay, right, people say, hey, this is much cooler than using Touch and Go card.
Yep.
Then they need to back up. Then perhaps they will have to talk to Apple. Hey, please put us on the Apple Pay app as well.
I mean, that's wishful thinking. I don't see Touch and Go feeling the heat.
So means you agree with me that they're complacent.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree that they're complacent. And what I'm trying to say is that the government needs to be smarter in a way to push them. Either change management or put a government body in charge of Touch and Go if they have that power, right? They can do that.
You mean
It's push them to be better.
I think if you, by opening up other players as a competition, I think that would be a big pressure for them. Already.
My concern is it's going to be super messy. Okay, we talk about having payment alternatives. It's not the problem. We talked about the problem in terms of cost and compatibility and all that stuff, right? It's an assumption that, okay, things will be better. By putting in more options, things will be better.
Not necessarily better, but it gives them pressure to improve.
That's another assumption. Because it's like, okay, if they go like, okay, you know what? Let them put the card system there. Let them see how terrible that system is. There's no process. It's all like, okay, let's leave it to chance. Like the government will say, okay, let's just put credit card there. It will be better because there's more options. And then Touch and Go is like, okay, we'll see if it's better or not. At the end of the day, Touch and Go is not incentivized to move because maybe they know that system is terrible. like we have let's say we have multiple. Okay, let's talk about MLFF, right?
Yep.
How does having multiple payment system benefit the development of MLFF? It doesn't.
MLF, you just drive through. You don't need to stop.
But how do you facilitate the payment, right? It's either through RFID, where so we also talked about like RFID, right? Okay, whether this MLFF system is going to use RFID or is going to use number plate recognition, which is totally impossible if they want to use number plate recognition, because we do not have a standardized number plate issuing system in the country.
Well, if we MLFF, right, the burden of the payment falls on the government and higher construction, not consumers. Because right now, the burden of the payment system is on consumers. So let's say you get stuck.
Yes.
You are the one getting burdened.
Yes.
With LMFF, there's no barrier. If you drive through, the system cannot catch you, right? Catch your number plate, right? That's the system's problem. So the government has to bear the brunt, no longer consumers. That's the difference.
To a certain degree, the government gets the money from the people, and if they don't figure this out and they don't get something that is already working and already off the ground, like touch and go, it seems to me, right, the narrative is like, okay, if you're not with us, you're against us, or you're by yourself. We're going to adopt a credit card system, and we're going to figure out how to deploy MLFF. We're using credit card or using whatever. Because instead of saying that, okay, touch and go, you know what? We agree that this is the strategy here. We're going to have a stock value card system. It's going to be a key component in lifting the B40, allowing them to be a cashless society, even if they prefer to be unbanked because they don't have enough money or whatever. At the same time, this is also going to be a key component to allow the improvement of certain systems. One of them is MLFF. It seems like that strategy is not in place. It's like, now, okay, let's just throw everything we got at this problem and see how it solves itself. It's an epitome of inefficiency. That's the way I see it.
Well, as we said earlier, right, the technology, there's nothing wrong with technology. Technology has been proven. I mean, MLFF, RFID.
But there's multiple ways to deploy it. One is through an RFID system. One is through number plate recognition system.
No, actually, mostly it's both. It's both. You need both.
Like for in Australia and stuff like that.
Yeah. So basically, how it works is that you must have a tag. Even Taiwan also have a tag. And then let's say you don't have the tag, and then you want to use the number plate to recognize. So normally there's an admin charge. So it's actually cheaper for you to use the tag. So that is much cheaper. So because for camera, right, they need to go to the back end to trace the number plate and then to send you the bill also, whatsoever. So that's the difference. So the MLF has been implemented worldwide. It's nothing new. It's finding the right system integrators.
It's finding the right ecosystem, right?
Yep.
So the you mentioned system integrator, right? So I still believe Touch and Go, for whatever issues they have in terms of their management, they have gotten certain things right. It's just they don't feel like they're comfortable lah. Yeah, that's the problem.
Correct. What I want to bring to the point, like for example, the open payment system, right?
Yeah.
Touch and Go and CIMB actually promised to offer an open payment system in 2019. So this was after the agreement with Plus, because Plus, they want to have their own open payment system. So after the legal dispute whatsoever, they said, okay, they settle it. And then when Plus announced that, okay, we're going to work together with Touch and Go for their Touch and Go RFID, implement Touch and Go RFID for all the highways, North-South Highway. And CIMB and Touch and Go said that we want to have an open payment system allowing you to connect to 4 different cashless payments. It can be a bank account, credit debit card, and also the e-wallets. It's been more than 3 years. What's going on? There's no
pandemic. It's fair.
I hate it when people always use pandemic as excuse. Like for example, right, 5G. Oh, 5G delayed for the pandemic. Look at other countries. There were 5G during the pandemic. Yeah. Similar to escalators like public transport. No escalator. No stop because pandemic. But look at the malls and hotels. Airports, the escalators are working. So don't tell me pandemic only affects our public transport.
That's the thing that I'm pissed off with. Right? I mean, the media, they don't ask the right question. I don't know whether they ask the right question, but they're not getting the right answer, so they don't dig deeper. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation. I think to a certain degree, we both agree that, okay, Touch and Go, you really need to get your shit together.
Yes, definitely.
Now, where we have a contention is whether the way that the government is doing it now is the right way to do it?
I'm not very hopeful. There are a few things like, number one, for example, Anthony Luke said, okay, we're going to put credit card terminals everywhere.
Yes.
For me, it's like, okay, for trains, I think that's possible. But for buses, you need to have a very good internet connection for that to pass through.
Yes.
And then when it comes to tolls, right, Alexander Nantalini said, oh, we're going to enable credit card payments in these 5 highways by September. That's like 5 months or 6 months
My
time.
my question is, who's going to bear the cost of all this systems installation? And whether there is going to be a, before Touch 'n Go, they had the transfer fee, not transfer fee, whatever fee it's called, right? When you tap on to go into the parking lot.
Yes, there's an admin fee.
Yes. When you reload, so there's a fee, right?
Yes, 50 cents, yeah.
Nobody said, no, and I don't know whether anybody asked, but credit card, I'm sure there's a fee. Because there is a system integration that costs more.
Yeah, but of course that can be sorted out based on whatever agreement they have. But the biggest question is, how are you going to accept credit debit cards? Because number one is, how the bank is going to work? Because number one is the first thing they want to say is they want to dismantle Touch 'n Go's monopoly, right? Yep. So who's going to do the open payment system? Is it Touch 'n Go? Or is it someone else?
It's going to be Touch 'n Go Digital.
But it isn't the no. The thing is, the highways, right? All the implementation is by Touch 'n Go, not Touch 'n Go Digital. Touch 'n Go Digital is a different company altogether.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about that. So if you want us to talk about Touch 'n Go Digital and how it relates to all this thing, we can, but we don't have time to talk about it right now.
But one thing I can share right now is that the MLFF, the multi-lane fast flow.
Free flow. It should be free flow, not fast flow. Fast flow means I can drive 200 kilometers an hour through the thing. I can't. I still have to slow down.
Yeah, and then you know how much that's going to cost?
Millions. I don't know.
Millions. According to the Deputy Works Minister, he said in Parliament this week, they're allocating 3.46 billion.
Holy.
Who's getting that? We don't know.
Why are they pushing for all this? Why did the budget get? How did the budget get approved so quickly for that huge amount of money? Instead of pushing for Touch 'n Go to work harder for less money, why suddenly there's 3.5 billion to make MLFF done by 2025?
Well, the talk about MLF has been going on for
but suddenly
years.
this 3.5 billion, where is it coming from?
Good question, but they say it's allocated, so I don't know where is it from.
Who's paying for it? It's not in the budget.
Definitely Touch 'n Go's not doing charity here.
Of course, they're not going to pay for it, for sure. So who's getting it?
No idea. That's the question I'm asking. Who's going to be implementing
Those
this?
pushing it. Ask them. That's all I have to say. I'm not saying that they will get it. I'm not speculating, but 3.5 billion just to what? Do what? Put MLFF lanes on how many highways? All highways, is it? Or just 5?
There's no lanes. You dismantle all the toll booths. You put the gantries on top of the highway where the tolls need to be collected. That's MLFF. And
what
also
about
the system.
Okay, then I want to sidetrack a bit lah. What about the government's promise, right? Anwar's promise, Pakatan's promise to abolish toll on all of the highways.
That's a good question.
What happened?
Yeah.
What happened? So now instead of the toll being abolished, it's probably going to cost more. Somebody is going to pay 3.5 billion. Who's from where? I don't know where the money is going to come from. It's going to go into somebody's pocket.
It's allocated, so
3.46
billion
for 2 years, right?
The new situation, basically, that's the cost to implement MLFF.
That's crazy, man. How quickly did they get this cost from? And what happened to free toll, low petrol prices? What happened?
Yeah, good question. What happened to that?
Sorry. Sergi Chow is not a political website or a political... This is not a political show. But what we're doing here is asking the questions. What is happening? And I think these are really pertinent questions. So at the end of the day, okay, what would be the perfect scenario for you?
Just walk the talk lah, because we've been talking about this for how many years already. It's like, come on, it's not like a brand new technology. It's been implemented worldwide. Just get it done lah. Make a decision and get it done. That's the frustration right now.
I think that's what they're doing, right?
They just do talking. Who's doing like we said, right? Who's going to implement the MLFF? No one's talking about that.
I don't know.
How's it going to be done?
A new company. I think it's going to be a new company.
Yeah, because they want to dismantle Touch 'n Go, right? So they're not going to give Touch 'n Go, obviously, because they don't want them to be monopoly, right?
So if you look at the narrative, right? Somebody asked the question, should we dismantle the monopoly? Anwar said yes. Immediately, all these things starts going on. And then immediately there's a money allocated, 3.46 billion, and there's nobody doing it.
And then they want to do open payment system by like 6 months' time. How? How?
Okay. On the optimistic side, okay, we're not trying to be political or whatever. On the optimistic side, what's going to happen is maybe the government is so efficient that they can do it within 6 months.
It's not like it's not like the government's going to get their hands dirty and install this thing. They need to name the partner.
But they should be accountable for it, right?
Yeah, they need accountable, but
because they're putting in the money.
Yeah, just put this perspective like RFID. How long it take them to do a trial, and then how is it right now?
But that's not government. That's touch and go, right?
Yeah, but government's in charge, right? They need to make them do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so just why I'm saying that in 6 months' time, right, they're going to get someone to do the open payment system, right? How they're going to make sure that this is done smoothly? Because if they go live in September and there's a lot of teething issues, they didn't test properly and all that, right?
Who are they going to blame?
You're going to create more problems because now you have 3 payment, right? You have Touch and Go, Smart Tag, and
Credit card.
RFID, through e-wallet. You're going to add credit card element. There's going to have 4 payment gateways, 4 payment options. If just one card gets stuck there, right, you're going to create a massive jam. Yeah.
So these are the questions. Then I asked you also, right? Okay, what is your ultimate optimum outcome? And then you say just get it done, right? So for me, my thing is I agree. Multi-lane free flow is critical because if you see a lot of the traffic jams that's caused on the highway is because of the toll booths themselves. And the other thing is having a stored card system is important for the development of the B40. I think it's important.
I think we move on from that phase. I think right now it's all e-wallets already. But for public transport, yes, I still believe in store value cards for public transport.
Okay, so and thank you for adding that. So what I'm trying to say is having stored value card system that works seamlessly with public transportation, cashless, and also our toll system, our highway system is the critical component here. For me, the optimum deployment of this is to have touch and go, a stored value card system that enables cashless society that works seamlessly with e-wallet provider, whether it's banks or digital payment, and it works across public transportation, services, parking, everything.
Yep.
Better than bank.
Yep.
Better than credit card.
It should work wherever cards are accepted lah, and then it's processed faster.
Yes. The 3 ministers that are working to solve this problem do not even look into that problem.
Maybe
they're only looking at public transportation and infrastructure, and not how to enable a cashless society that encompasses all of society in Malaysia. And that's the problem. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, we end the show.
Yep.
Okay, so what do you guys think? It's a good show? I think this is my thing to remind you that we're also available on podcasts. So if you want to listen to us, we're available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Just search for Soy Chinchao Let's Talk About and we're there. If you're listening to us on podcast, do give us a 5-star rating because that helps us a lot. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up if you like the show. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And yeah, we love to hear what you think about what we talked about today. Multi-lane free flow, or should it be multi-lane fast flow?
Yes.
I think free flow is better. What do you think of touch and go? Should it be a key component in a cashless society, or should we just give up and go to e-wallets and banks, which is not safe either? And do suggest us a topic for us to talk about in the next episode. If you're listening to us on podcast, you can also drop a voice note at
Let's Talk About at soychinchao.com.
And we'll be more than happy to listen to what you have to say as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it. This is me, Amin.
And this is Alex.
Catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.